Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm Sarah Watt.
And I'm William Chen.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective with some connection. It could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. However, in our now ongoing tradition at Cinema in Context, our December episode is put aside for our favourite films of the year. And it's very exciting, dear listeners, to announce that we are back in person.
Hey.
We are out of lockdown.
Hi, guys.
And
Welcome.
the microphone is surrounded by a plethora of delicious treats. Would you like to describe, maybe, William and Sarah, what are some of the treats and goodies that we've got in front of us?
I'm seeing some fresh strawberries from south of Auckland and some panettone, which I am assured must have come directly from Italy.
Wow.
Cheeses, cherry tomatoes, a pear paste, and just a plethora of goodies in the Christmas theme.
Nice. And I'm seeing some great themed mugs. We've got teas and coffees. William's mug in particular has a French or an artiste cat on it, I think. Yeah, very nice. None of this is relevant to films, but very relevant to the, I guess, I mean, libation relates to drinks, doesn't it? But oh gosh, I'm thinking of words that just are going to come across really wrong. What's a nice word to describe the way that this is encouraging thought?
This reminds me of a bacchanal, a feast, a Dionysian feast, which is analogous to the discussion that we're going to have today about those amazing films of 2021. And what a year that was, ladies and gentlemen.
The amazing films that spilleth over.
That's true.
2021... It's been another year interrupted by lockdowns and various restrictions because of COVID-19. Last year we had the rule that television and film could kind of be talked about together. We haven't really talked about it. I've got some TV series in the mix of my favourite films of the year, even though it's a slightly bending of the rules. Are we happy with that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, we'll be the judge, won't we, Jeremy?
Right.
If anything has anything to do with Joss Whedon or any sort of Buffy spin-off, then no.
Joss Whedon's not in good stead at the moment, is he?
He's not the guy anymore.
And the 5 categories that is going to craft and guide our discussion are similar to what we've done in the past, but we've changed up one of them a little bit. So we're going to talk to our biggest surprise of the year. So a film that maybe we didn't expect to be as good as it was. Mm-hmm. Our biggest disappointment of the year. So I guess the converse of that. A film that we were excited about and it let us down. We're going to talk about a wildcard film. Something that's maybe a bit outside of the box that is worth mentioning and may or may not connect with the general populace. We're going to talk about a recommendation for our fellow podcasters. Some of us, that's a single text for everybody, and for some of us, there might be some more individualized suggestions for each of us. And then we're going to talk to our films of the year with probably some discussion of our runner-up texts in there. Now, it's worth saying that, me personally anyway, with lockdown, we have had so many films come out in other parts of the world and even other parts of the country that now are available to us all at once. And I was just saying before we started recording, I'm seeing Encanto tomorrow, the new Pixar Disney film. I could only see it at 10 a.m. in the morning on a weekend, or maybe 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And there's a whole range of films that just aren't available. So I haven't seen Power of Dog, I haven't seen Encanto, I'm seeing Spider-Man tomorrow night. The Matrix Resurrections comes out on Boxing Day, or first, I can't quite figure out. The Tragedy of Macbeth is somewhere in there. Last Night in Soho, which I know, William, you've seen. French Dispatch, which we were just discussing. Any other disclaimers that people want to share?
West Side Story.
West Side Story.
Well, I've seen that. Because obviously I have the privilege of sometimes going to some press screenings. But no, you're absolutely right. It was gutting to be locked down for 3.5 going on 4 months in Auckland. And not be able to write the review for the new James Bond film, for example, or Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. And so that had to be outsourced to some guy in Wellington. So when lockdown ended for us, my husband and I went to the pictures on that first day, the Friday. We saw the Bond film. We saw The Last Duel the next day. We saw French Dispatch on the Sunday, Power of the Dog on the Monday, and Dune on the Tuesday. So, getting out there as quickly as possible to make up for lost time.
And we were the same. My boyfriend and I went to the movies 4 times in 1 week.
Yeah.
And one of those was seeing the same film twice.
Wow.
And I just, like, we're going twice tomorrow. Like, it's just trying to get to everything in the midst of what is already quite a full-on season with a lot of people's workplaces, let alone this other big event happening in a week's time, called Christmas.
Yeah.
And we're recording this, dear listeners, the week before Christmas. So just to give a bit of context. It's actually nice though. We usually record this in November, don't we? So well in advance.
And we really have to predict what we think we're going to love. So at least we're
so
a week
much
off.
stuff. So much stuff comes out in these months leading up to the award season.
That's right.
And it's oftentimes the best movies of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well-
I think spoilers, we usually talk quite spoilerific, don't we? I think with these ones we try and hedge some of those spoilers because there's no real warning for people to know what films we're going to talk about. And I think there's fairness to us as well.
And maybe, and also I think what's nice about this sort of episode is that invariably we'll be talking about films that other people haven't seen, and therefore you might hear about it and go, oh, that sounds good, I'll find it. So yeah, this is that opportunity.
Right, let's jump in. Should we start with surprise? Who wants to kick us off with their biggest surprise of 2021?
All right, here we go. Guys, there's so many oddball movies that came out this year. I guess a lot of the stuff pushed back from 2019 and 2020 as well. And for me, one of the biggest surprises was a movie called Werewolves Within. So, I don't know if you guys like the card game Mafia.
You know I do.
I know you do.
I know
that was a
about
leading
it.
question.
Yeah.
So Mafia is one of the great social deduction card games that people play on camp, amongst friend groups, and it's all about figuring out who's lying in your group and voting them out. A spin-off of Mafia is called Werewolves, which is, much more supernatural themed. And in the mid-2010s, the gaming company Ubisoft created a VR, virtual reality version of Werewolves called Werewolves Within, where you were playing Mafia, except it was in VR with other players being represented by avatars. And the story goes that they then decided to fund a film adaptation of the VR game, of the card game, of an adaptation of another card game. And this movie is so much fun, you guys. It's basically what happened if a game of Mafia or a game of Werewolves was turned into a movie.
Wow.
And so you have a small town in Vermont. It stars, I guess some people you should maybe know. So Sam Richardson from Veep is the main dude. Milana Vaintrub, Harley Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows. But all of them are these archetypes who are trapped in a small Vermont town during a snowstorm. There may or may not be a werewolf among them.
Wow.
And of course, there's backstabbings. There's a lot of stuff that you recognize from playing the game, like people saying, I'm innocent. And then it culminates in just a really, really fun way. So just such a breath of fresh air, wonderful horror comedy, Werewolves Within.
That sounds like, and it's like murder mystery
It's a
genre.
murder mystery.
I'm getting hints on my palette of The Thing, Hateful Eight, Clue.
Actually, it skews really, really close. It's like if Hateful Eight meets Clue with werewolves.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's on the poster.
I'm sold.
Excellent. Werewolves Within. Mm-hmm. Werewolves Within. Among Us as well. That's
Yes,
the,
of
the
course.
new game that's
gosh.
spreading the world. Yeah.
Where would one find Werewolves Within? On the internet?
On the internet. So I bought it, or I rented it on YouTube. I think it's on Shudder.
Oh,
the
yeah,
horror
okay.
streaming site.
Okay,
But
I
YouTube is the easiest way to find it.
Great.
That's an interesting development in the film and TV landscape, right? Is describing where you can access these things. Like I think about the Flix website and a lot of articles now. I was reading a Flix article about the Wachowskis films, and each film, this writer was sort of post-reviewing it after many, many years, and they always had the logo of the platform that you could access
Cool.
it. Just an interesting development, right? In the way that we share about movies. Sarah, share us your surprise film of 2021.
Okay, so my surprise film, I think it was like a pleasant surprise that it was actually good. The film is Annette. It is a musical. It is intensely strange. It opened, I think, the Cannes Film Festival, and if it didn't open it could have and should have. Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard play lovers. He is a narcissistic, misanthropic comedian. She is a beautiful opera singer, and they are passionately in love, but it is one of these over-the-top, destructive, self-destructive relationships. And Annette is notable, partly because it is directed by that French darling of the Cannes Film Festival and the festival circuit, Léos Carax, who did Holy Motors, but also because it is a musical scored and lyriced by the Sparks brothers, or rather the Males brothers, known as Sparks. They're very, very esoteric band who have been going like 50 years or something. And I only encountered Sparks at the very, very beginning of the 2000s and was enchanted by their music. It's very, very orchestral. It's strange, but not in a disconcerting way. To me, it's very melodic and harmonic, and the lyrics are terribly clever. My favorite of their songs is called I Married Myself, and it goes, I married myself, we're very happy together, or I'm very happy together, going for long walks on the beach, that sort of thing. Anyway, so that's obscure. It's just a marvelous film. Musically, if you're into it, you're gonna love it. It is. Did you see it?
I did.
It's so over the top, isn't it? And it's theatrical and it's bombastic and it gets away with it, to my mind. I saw it in the cinema, which I think helps a lot, because I think you need to be immersed in the ludicrosity of it all. And then even when it gets quite dark and kind of, not grim so much, but quite dark, doesn't it? It's still sort of intoxicating and wonderful. But I will just say, I was listening to the soundtrack throughout the film and like, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to like Spotify this and listen to it ad nauseum afterwards. And I can't, because actually the music's super depressing when you're listening to it without the film going on. So there we are. Note to self, forget about it. But, so Annette, Léos Carax, Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard. Fantastique.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a couple of conversations about this, Sarah. I think I appreciated the movie more than I enjoyed it.
Right.
But you and I both liken it to like a fine art installation.
Yes.
Right? You see it and it's so avant-garde and in your face. It's like, I really like what they're doing, even if I am not on board with the film itself.
I'm feeling, right?
Yes.
And that's what art ought to do, is make you feel, even if it's... Ooh.
Because it's intentionally off-putting in so many ways, including the music. And yet you cannot help but marvel at the craft of the filmmaking.
I agree. So Jeremy, tell us, what was your biggest surprise of the year?
Well, my biggest surprise of the year is the only Marvel entry you'll find on my list this year, even though there has been some interesting offerings in 2021. And that is the first of the new sort of revived television series that they've been doing, WandaVision, with, is it Elizabeth Olsen, is that her name? One of the Olsen sisters, and Paul Bettany, in a role that I don't think he ever expected to become what it became. You know, he was originally the voice of Vision. No, not Vision. Jarvis, wasn't it? In the Iron Man series, and then it's grown into this rich and wonderful character of Vision. WandaVision is a sort of 6 to 8 part series. I can't remember exactly how many episodes. Where each episode follows a different era of American sitcom television, mimicking the styles and creating a story through genre that you're not quite sure how it's all going to pan out. You know that something's wrong. You know that this is somehow a veil for something more sinister going on, involving big government and secret agents and mind control. And it's a really fun time. I know William and I have talked about it. You had some issues with the final episode and how things wrapped up. I just had a great time from start to finish. I thought Elizabeth Olsen's performance was spectacular, as was Paul Bettany, but Elizabeth Olsen particularly, she is wonderful. The other bit characters, you've got Catherine Hahn in there, who's an absolute joy to watch.
She's so good.
I don't know the name of the actress who plays the other superhero. She kind of gains her powers through the piece. She's fantastic. You've got the character played by, what's her name? Dennings.
Kat Dennings?
Kat Dennings. She comes in from the Thor series. There's a whole range of really good characters in there. I had a great time. If you love genre, TV genre, particularly sitcoms from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and 2000s, you'll have a good time with WandaVision.
So can I ask you, Jeremy, what does somebody need to know, about the MCU or anything at all in order to enjoy WandaVision? Or is it something you can come to totally knowing nothing?
I think that's a really good question. There's two major plot points, and they're both from the Avengers series. So if you were to watch the 4 Avengers films, or even the 3 Avengers films, you'll get enough to know what's going on. So Elizabeth Olsen's character, she is a mutant from the X-Men universe, but because of licensing issues, they cannot refer to her as a mutant. They have to call her a gifted or something. And so she has mind control abilities, and she can create reality. So she can make you think that you're sitting in the south of France.
Because I feel like I've seen her in one of the films, which must have been an Avengers film.
Yeah, and her brother was very fast. He's very fast. And
the speedy guy.
Yeah.
He's my favourite, played by Evan Peters.
Well, Evan Peters plays him in the X-Men films, but he's played by... What's the dude's name in Avengers? Aaron, the guy who's married to the photographer.
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yes.
Oh.
So he
it's
dies.
confusing, isn't it? Oh, don't even.
And the show makes it slightly even more confusing.
Evan Peters comes into the show as her brother.
What?
So they really start playing with the...
Okay.
So he dies in the Avengers film. Her brother dies. Her only significant relationship. You know, they grew up as orphans in Russia. And then the character of Vision is created in one of the Avengers films. And they fall in love. So she finds love with this character. And he dies in... one of the
Avengers Infinity War, yeah.
Because he has one of the stones in his head, and so that kind of has to get ripped out to make the glove that does the click. Yeah, there we go, team.
Okay.
And so you need to know that because so there's a couple of mysteries going on. One is Vision's in this show, and he's dead.
I think you can stop. To be honest, you lost me at
clicky
Aaron Taylor Johnson. No, I mean I like him. Don't get me wrong, but no, I'm just okay. So the answer is.
Just watch
it. Okay, cool.
There we go. All right, let's move into disappointment. Feels like a good segue. Oh, the disappointment of that conversation. Let's go to Sarah, and then we'll go to William, and I can bring us back to the next one.
Let's go back to Cannes, 2021, ladies and gentlemen, where a French female director won the Palme d'Or for her film Titane. I'm pretty sure Titane, as we're calling it in the Anglo world, is Titane, and it's titanium, basically. Oh my gosh, or sacre bleu, as they say in France. So this film won the frickin' Palme d'Or, right? Wow. Okay, so it's, as I mentioned, it's by a French female film director who is known, I forget her name now. Do you remember her name? No, I shall look her up. She is, and I'm sorry, lady director, that I don't remember your name off the top of my head. I am ill-prepared. However, she is known for her film Raw, R-A-W, not the one with the lions. She is, oh yes, that's right. It's Julie Dourcourneau. Thank you very much. She is French-Belgian as well. You shouldn't mess that up for the Belgians. My apologies. Oh, flippin' heck. This film is supposed to be bravura filmmaking, female protagonist. The female protagonist is called Alexia. We're introduced to her in the most extraordinary one-shot opening scene. She is a surly, pierced, tattooed model type who does the most incredibly sexy moves, dance or something, atop a Corvette or some sort of big ass car in a car show. And honestly, it's incredible and it's sexy and it's provocative and it's amazing. And then all of a sudden, this character becomes that she is actually a serial killer of sorts in a very sort of Clockwork Orange-y sort of nihilistic-y kind of way. And one thing leads to another, and she's disenfranchised from her family, and she inveigles her way into a relationship with Vincent London, who is a firefighter, grieving the mysterious disappearance of his son. Alexia pretends to be a boy. None of this is really a spoiler. She pretends to be a boy.
What is this movie?
Yeah, and
exactly
right. And it's gruesome as, and typically with Dourcourneau's very, very, actually like a Cronenbergian sort of, body horror kind of style. You get all the things. You get a body piercing being caught in somebody's hair. You get a thingy needle. What are these called? A hypodermic needle plunged into somebody's buttocks. You get flesh. You get people's
grindhouse advertisement. Flesh.
Oh, honestly,
hypodermic needle.
and like bodily orifices spewing motor oil and just kind of like weird stuff, right? And so not only did this film win the Palme d'Or, oh no, you may say, why didn't you like it, Sarah? Okay, it's not that I'm squeamish, although I did flinch plenty of times, and it's almost like the director is playing chicken with you to see whether you can handle what she's putting on screen. But actually the story is just a frickin' mess, and the character development is a frickin' mess as well. So the absurdity doesn't work in a way that that Cronenberg, for example, might get away with, you know?
I find Cronenberg, I always want to like his films more than I do.
Right.
I don't feel they always hold together. Whereas someone like John Carpenter, he's fantastic. He's got a heart and a drive, and he can kind of get away with some of those flares. But I hear
this doesn't quite work, and it just seems to be schlocky shock value kind of thing. So anyway, not only did it win the Palme d'Or, mind blown, but France have the audacity to enter this as their foreign language nomination to the Oscars next year.
Wow.
And the very thought that the Academy voters are going to be, have this inflicted upon them and being expected to vote for this over goodness knows what, I just think is laughable. So Titane, I think, is worth watching if you just have so much time on your hands and you're so interested in film that you want to know what you feel about it. But it isn't, to my mind, or my husband's, a good, well-made film. So, sorry. Thank you for listening to my TED talk. Yeah.
No, nice. William, what's your biggest disappointment in 2021?
I was just chuckling silently throughout. I had two things on my list. I'll talk about one of them because my other thing was Titane. This movie is terrible.
Yeah, there you go.
It's I love Raw, you guys. Have you guys seen Raw? It's so gross, but in such a different way to Titane, because it's very, very directed, and it has a central metaphor that the entire movie revolves around, whereas Titane, the threads just unravel almost immediately.
I'm so relieved you think
have no idea what happens.
Yeah.
And I agree, Sarah, it's just schlock for schlock value. And the schlock is pretty good.
Is there comparisons to be made? I'm thinking of Richard Kelly, who did Donnie Darko in his movies, just kind of spaghetti
and then
the guy to Drive?
Yeah.
What was
Nicholas
after Donnie Darko? It was that crazy movie with The Rock and Justin
Tales.
Timberlake.
I kind of love Southland Tales because it's so outrageous.
That is such a good comparison. So yes, I would say that Titane is to Raw as Southland Tales is to Donnie Darko.
Narratively.
Yes.
Not obviously body horror-y.
But since you covered it so well, Sarah, I'm going to talk about my other biggest disappointment, which unfortunately was also one of my faves in 2020. It's Ted Lasso Season 2.
Ooh, nice.
Did not like the season,
you didn't
guys.
like the whole season?
I thought it was really, really playing on some of the weakest aspects of the show. I really disliked how the show became just another sitcom. It felt to me that everything that was introduced to try and build on the characters was really, really like textbook sitcom stuff. Things that wouldn't really appear in season 1 of Ted Lasso, which to me, even though it was exaggerated characters, it was in a world that felt like, okay, this could kind of exist. I can see people acting like this. Whereas Ted Lasso season 2 just heaped cliche, or for me anyway, cliche upon cliche upon cliche. There's some stuff that works really well. I thought the character of Nate, Nick Mohammed, his arc is amazing.
Yes.
Agreed.
So good.
I agree.
But everything else, and I know the show is often accused of being really treacly sweet. I didn't really mind that, I guess, apart from the Christmas episode. But it was really just how evident that this was a TV show. And I really felt like, I thought you were better than this, Ted Lasso.
Can I challenge you a little on that, William? Because I hear what you're saying in terms of it possibly hitting beats, for example, and this is a mini titchy-witchy spoiler, which I hope is allowed, because honestly, if you love Ted Lasso, you've probably seen it by now. So, for example, when, I want to call her Hayley, what's her name?
Keely?
Keely. When Nate kisses Keely and she coughs up to Roy about it, and we expect that the character of Roy is going to get super mad and punch someone in the face, and instead he's really gracious about it. That seems to me that what Ted Lasso does, I think, expertly, is posit something that's a traditional sort of cliche, and then subvert it, usually by making the characters more decent people than we are expecting them to be.
Well,
That's
I
right.
think specifically with that example, what got to me was how they were piling all the cards against that couple, right?
Right.
You had the school teacher that was kind of having a thing with Brett Goldstein's character.
Yeah.
You had Keeley, and then Jamie Tart coming back into
Yes,
her life.
that's
And it's
right.
like, this is too much, you guys. I don't like what you're doing here, narratively,
Right.
on that level.
I'm so glad you brought this up, William, because you brought up Ted Lasso as one of your favourite texts of last year, and that motivated me to go watch it, and absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it didn't get to Ted Lasso 2 for quite a while. I think just fatigue in the lockdown. I thought, I want to wait until I'm in the right headspace, and I also want to wait until I can binge the whole thing, because that was part of the joy of watching it over the Christmas season last year. So I watched it. What did I do? I watched a couple of episodes, and then I watched the rest with my boyfriend and his flatmates. We all watched it together, and I had already been warned that it was disappointing. So it wasn't a disappointment for me because I'd already kind of been set up to be disappointed. But there's 2 episodes in particular for me that really, I was like, what is going on? Everything else I was generally happy with, even the Christmas episode.
The Coach Beard episode?
The Coach Beard episode. So
Yeah.
my issue with the Coach Beard episode is that it doesn't go anywhere,
No.
and it doesn't influence the story
It's
in
like a
any
spin-off.
way. And those sort of episodes are often my favourite kind of episodes. You know, this Kubrick, it was a Kubrick celebration, right? There was
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange and Eyes Wide Shut, and there's all these different films of Kubrick movies that they were referencing, the blue moon in the sky that they kept showing. And there was no revelation, there was no change, and there was no influence on the story. You could actually skip that episode,
Oh, you totally
and you
could.
wouldn't miss anything
What was it
that was
called again?
vital.
It had a particular name that shows that it's a reference to another text.
I can't remember. I was getting Kubrick strong. Actually, references to other texts became very on the nose. Like, I love Brett Goldstein's podcast, Films to be Buried With, and so his knowledge was on show there. But it got a little bit gimmicky. And then the next episode, which was the funeral episode, my issue with that is there is a big build-up to and this is a spoiler, so just kind of, if you haven't seen the season, maybe skip forward 20 seconds, 30 seconds. There's a big build-up to Ted revealing to the counsellor, to the therapist,
Yes.
kind of what's going on for
Yes,
him, and he
yes.
reveals this very traumatic experience
Which I
of
thought
losing
was
his father.
incredibly beautiful.
We'd been waiting for this moment, and they intercut that scene with Rebecca talking about her father to her mother, which is like, we don't know her father.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right time to have a character beat for Rebecca.
Right.
I wanted to stay with Ted in that scene. Like, there's just some really poor choices. I felt the final episode brought it back. I think Nate's storyline, I've had some friends that don't agree with me, but I really think the way that they built up Nate's daddy issues
Yes.
to putting unrealistic expectations on what Ted's relationship was, and in the way he treated everybody else, brilliant human nuanced storytelling. But yeah, I thought those 2 episodes really were so left field.
It's called Beard, can't even say his name now, Beard After Hours. And I'm just madly searching, and I'm sure that our readers, listeners, watchers will know this or find it better. But it is related to... it's related to Martin Scorsese's 1985 film After Hours, which sends Griffin Dunn, an ordinary white-collar New Yorker, through the wilds of New York City and through the after-dark underside of that city. So it's obviously an homage to... Quite why they did that, I don't know.
I mean, I feel like there was this big build-up about, let's not talk about his relationship, let him figure it out for himself.
Yeah.
And I felt that it made sense that he would understand how toxic that relationship was with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then that lesson could then propel into the next few episodes, and there might have been a big obstacle that they were facing as a team, and Coach Beard's revelation and being a part of that community then influenced some breakthrough. Like, that would make... Because the actual episode itself was quite fun, but the fact that it meant nothing...
Yeah.
I mean, am I wrong? Did it mean something?
I think you're absolutely right.
It didn't mean anything to me. And if anything, it was just holding us back from, come on, we want to know what's up with Ted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair call.
That was my TED Talk. And it was after William's...
A literal TED Talk.
So was that your biggest disappointment?
No. My biggest disappointment of the year was No Time to Die. The latest
Oh! And that's all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen. So,
and like most of my disappointments, I think Incredibles 2's been on this list before, is not because they were not good films, but because they are almost great films. And so for me, if you were to watch any half an hour of that movie, you'd have a great time. So the cast is great, the dialogue is fantastic, the jokes, and I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge's influence is very clearly seen through that. I thought the set pieces were great.
That bike jump.
I love, even though I'd
God.
seen it in the trailer so many times,
Yeah.
still, in the movies, that bike jump, I was just like, woo!
Like, yes.
I don't remember what.
At the very, very beginning.
He goes up the stairs and over the wall into the town square.
My
Oh
God.
my
And they would have done that for
gosh.
real, right?
Yeah.
So all of the set pieces were great. I thought, the bringing back of characters and the kind of referencing of not just the last 4 Daniel Craig films, but wonderful references to the whole series.
Yes.
You had musical flourishes from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. You had, of course, the Louis Armstrong? Was that his?
Yes.
His, All the Time in the
Time in the
World.
World.
Yep.
There's a lot of really impressive references. I mean, especially with what was the film I just mentioned? The music's from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I mean, that's the George Lazenby one, isn't it? Where he marries Diana Rigg and then she gets killed at the end. I mean, there's some very lovely homages there.
Yep.
I just felt like this film had been designed, all of the set pieces had been decided upon before they'd finished or written the script, and they'd started making the movie before they'd written the script. Because the Rami Malek character, who, great villain aesthetically and performatively, great lair at the end.
But he's a nothing, isn't he?
Made no sense.
He's a nothing villain.
I had no idea what his motivation truly was, why he was gathering this ridiculous weapon. Like, the negligence of MI6 is like Ray Fiennes' character should go to flipping prison for life. Like, this is the most dangerous weapon. And he's like, we got on the wrong hands. I'm like, this is terrible. And I turned to Josh, my boyfriend, at one point. I said, "Do you understand what's going on?" And he's like, "Or do you know why he's doing it?" He's like, "I have no idea why he's doing that." And also, it didn't weave together. So, loved all the set pieces, but I got to the end. I was like, it was better than Spectre, but Spectre was so bad that anything's better than Spectre. Biggest disappointment of the year. Any thoughts on No Time to Die?
I almost don't want to, because I don't want us to say too much, because...
Spoilers.
Yeah.
It's still worth seeing at the cinema, and I've said to a lot of my friends, if you haven't been to the movies and you want to just go and just watch a movie, that's a movie to go and watch.
Yeah.
I love the Jamaica reference, the Ian Fleming, and the I turned to Josh again at one point. I was like, this is one of the original sets from Dr. No. They've recreated it. Loved the new it's a spoiler, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the female characters, actually the female characters are fantastic.
Ana de Armas, it's like, please come back to the movie. You're awesome.
She disappears, and she's brilliant.
She literally goes like, well, see ya.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'd be interested to see how they move forward with the James Bond series.
Well, you haven't gone first yet, Jeremy. Do you want to launch us into your wild card?
I'd love to. I thought long and hard about this and moved around some things, but I still feel like this makes most sense to fall into the wild card category. It's a film that is actually kind of, like, I don't want to say it's terrible, because it's not, but it's very silly. It's a very silly movie. Not everybody's going to love it, but it is, I feel like, going to become a cult classic and a harking back to a bygone era of movies that were made, let's say 20, 30 years ago. And that is Barb and Star go to Vista.
Of course it is.
Oh, what a cutie.
I was so excited about this movie because I will kind of watch Kristen Wiig staring at a wall, like, I think she's just hilarious and funny, and her writing partner, Annie, forgotten her last name, who did Bridesmaids, they did this movie, and it's couldn't be further from Bridesmaids. It is a Romeo and Michelle high school reunion meets Austin Powers, Kristen Wiig playing the villain and the hero, and it's ludicrous, or in the words of Maya Rudolph, quoting Paula, whatever, I can't remember her name, ludicrous. Have you seen it?
Yes.
What did you think?
Thought it was silly.
It's so silly.
And we got to the end, and I'm pretty sure my husband said, well, I can see why Jeremy liked that.
I mean, you've got talking crabs in the voice of Morgan Freeman. You've got, a sea goddess riding dolphins. You've got, what else have you got? Killer mosquitoes.
To me, it's like a dessert buffet in like a mid-tier kind of restaurant where there's some stuff that you're like, that was actually above average delicious, and then there's just a whole lot of stuff that's like feels shop bought or like is too gelatinous.
You can tell that there's just people having
Gelatinous. Rave Sarah.
Bob and Star, too gelatinous at times.
I mean, you can tell that they are just having an absolute blast,
Well-
whether the audience is or not. I had a great time. I've watched it a few times, and it's so stupid.
That's lovely.
It's silly.
Speaking of the people, the actors, the filmmakers having a blast, possibly at the expense of the audience, that reminds me of the Ocean's movies. Particularly the old version, the Frank Sinatra version, but particularly the newer version. And for Ocean's 11, I was like, yep, I'm with you. And by the time it was 12 and 13, I was just like, you guys are just making me pay to watch you have a fun time making a movie and making some money. And I kind of resented that a little.
I think that happens more often than not,
I
doesn't
do-
it?
it
People
does
often
now.
choose films because... No, I think it's always happened. It's like, oh yeah, I'll go and spend a summer in Hawaii making...
Yeah.
wherever
Thanks,
they film.
Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, that's me. William, what's your wildcard movie of 2021?
Alright, guys. Space Jam 2, A New Legacy.
No!
serious?
No!
This is... I mean, I gotta bring it up because, you guys, this is the future of entertainment.
Algorithm filmmaking.
It is algorithm filmmaking with a villain called Algae Rhythm. Okay?
Oh, wow.
It is so bleak. I don't know if either of you have seen the Member Berries episode of South Park.
No.
Okay, so it's the episode where the kids of South Park consume member berries, and it's these little nuggets of nostalgia. So it's like, oh, Indiana Jones, member?
That's cool.
This is the Member Berries movie. Basically, it's Warner Brothers taking Space Jam, a quote-unquote beloved film from 1996, sticking LeBron James in it and going, you know what? Disney has all this IP. Let's show the world what we have in our stable.
Yeah, I see.
Such IP, kid-friendly, IP is Game of Thrones, Rick and Morty, Casablanca, A Clockwork Orange.
Wow.
Whatever happened to Baby Jane? The list goes on.
Are you serious?
I
All
am
those
dead
referenced
serious.
in the
All
film?
the characters in these movies are in the movie, most of them with speaking lines or at least a shot of them cheering in the stands. It's nuts. Sarah, when we did our Free Guy Matrix episode, and we were pretty disparaging
Yes,
of the
I was
Marvel
thinking of
Disney stuff that, he pulls out a lightsaber and there's the Star Wars theme. Don't watch Space Jam 2 and
No.
I think you will hate this movie. And it's just so dispiriting and so unfortunate that this might be where we're heading. You see all these IPs clashing in so many products nowadays. Stuff like Fortnite. Oh, guess what? Batman's in Fortnite. You want to play as Batman? Yeah, it seems really, really pertinent to the dark path we are heading down. But that's not actually my wild card. My wild card is Slamilton. Okay. No. So, I'm sorry guys, this is breaking the rules left, right, and center. Slamilton is what Space Jam 2 A New Legacy should have been. So this is...
You shared it with us, and
Yes.
I listened to like a good chunk of it.
Okay, thank you so much. It is a mashup concept album of the first Space Jam album and ads and trailers and dialogue with Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton.
Get out. That
with
sounds
you.
clever.
It's
Get out of here!
It's so good, and it shows that these IP mashups can work if people love both the IP. The idea that we can take something so incongruous as these two things and then mesh it into something which I think is a cohesive whole, and there's a narrative thread that goes through Slamilton that draws from both the emotions of Hamilton and of Space Jam 96.
That's very clever.
It's incredible, and the music is actually really good.
I love that. Imagine if they made that into a film. I think about, I fully agree with you, William, about the dark path we're going and how the nostalgia kind of mining of all of these... What's the meta-referential? No, what is the thing where you reference... You put something into kind of fan service, but it's more about the thing than the thing. I can't. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, meta. I think that. I mean, meta is what people call it nowadays.
Yeah, there's another word for it. It's got a fancy word. But the one that I was excited about was the idea for the third not Catch-22. What's the one where they go into the school and pretend to be high school students to catch the drug?
21 Jump Street.
21 Jump
Yes.
Street. And then, of course, that second one, 22 Jump Street, they made the joke of all the sequels at the end.
That ending is
And so
just
it's like,
yes,
what
yes.
are they going to do? And it was in development. They were going to make a Men in Black and I'll keep on saying Catch-22. 23 Jump Street kind of mashover.
Which is the best idea.
That's such a good idea. And we know that Chris Lord and Miller, what's his name? Phil Miller?
Chris Miller, Phil Lord.
Chris Miller, Phil Lord. My words are really serving me well today, listeners. They would have done a great job of that because they do that mashup so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed Slamilton, what I heard.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, good times. Sarah.
Well, I'm a little more highbrow than everyone else at the table, evidently, because my wild card is a documentary called Class Action Park. Did any of you watch it?
Yes, of course I did, Sarah.
Did you watch it, Jeremy?
No, but I enjoyed William's laugh.
Oh my gosh.
Highbrow it is.
Class Action Park is an extraordinary documentary about an extraordinary amusement park in Vernon, New Jersey.
I'm already loving. I love amusement parks, and I love watching videos online of rides, but equally of when people have died on rides.
So this documentary is available. It certainly was available many months ago on Netflix, and God willing, it's still on there. It's a 2020 film, but I only got to see it this year. So, Class Action Park is actually. Action Park is the name of an amusement park that was devised. I haven't refreshed my memory on this. Was it in the 70s or the 80s? And the people of New Jersey flocked to it. The most fascinating thing about Action Park is that it was created to be that much riskier, that much more dangerous, that much you take your own life in your hands. I mean, Osh just would have had a field day. But people went there anyway, and you got your cred for doing the crazy leaps off cliffs into the water below and surviving. Or you might, break a limb or something and you broke your arm at Action Park, that kind of thing. I don't really need to say very much about the film, other than to say it is the most fascinating and eye-boggling. The footage that they have is extraordinary, and the drama that unfolds around, a couple of deaths and multiple injuries, and the fact that it was run by a bunch of teenagers, like we're talking just teenagers, 14, 15, 16. They were the ones with the whistles and the life vests, if there were life vests.
They were supposed to save people's lives.
Exactly. They were the ones serving food in the cafeteria. They were the ones getting high and shagging up in the cabin in the mountain and, all this stuff. It is hilarious.
I'm sold. I love stories like this.
It's brilliant. I'm actually going to watch it again after this because I've resold it to myself. So
is it on Netflix still?
Yeah,
I think it may be. And the Action Park was a water park come like motor park. So there were motorboats and go-karts. You can see just all sorts of shenanigans coming out of this.
Oh, it's terrible, but it's amazing. And it's amazing that it ever was allowed to exist, but also that there's just this incredible... you totally get it. There's this bravado of the people nowadays who look back and go, we survived either visiting or working at Action Parks.
Yeah, Jeremy, they had a loop-de-loop slide. A loop-de-loop slide.
Wow.
And they tried
people
it out.
just fall down.
Yeah, and they tried...
And smashed their faces as they fell onto the inner loop.
And so then they modified it slightly, and then they'd modify another one, and there's like a water kind of chute it's pitch black inside, and people were getting stuck, or they were getting bashed, or they were coming out the bottom bleeding and bruised. And
with the loop-de-loop slide, they ended up installing a hatch at the top of the loop as an escape for people who had lost their teeth.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So there you
go. This is great TV.
There's a wild card for you. So
wow.
There's your Christmas viewing. You're welcome.
William, do you want to start us off with our recommendations category?
Sure thing. Now, this was actually at the top of my list, my film/TV of the year for the longest time before something else bumped it down further along. I love the show, Reservation Dogs.
Oh, I so want to see this. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh my gosh, please go see it, everybody.
Is it on Disney or Apple?
It's FX, but you can see it in New Zealand on Disney Plus.
Nice.
Yeah. So Reservation Dogs is the new, I guess it's a sitcom from Sterling Harjo and Taika Waititi. It's about 4 disaffected youth living on an unnamed reservation, a Native American reservation in Oklahoma. So it's Elora Danon, which is an awesome name, from Willow, played by Devery Jacobs, Bear, played by DeFero Wunatai, Cheese, Lane Factor, and Willie Jack, Paulina Alexis. And I think what starts out is something very, very, for lack of a better term, Taika Waititi, kind of street smart kids who are in a pretty miserable situation with, obviously there's poverty, there's a lot of social things going on.
They just want to get the hell out of Dodge, don't they?
Yeah. The first episode is all about them committing petty crimes and selling goods to try and earn enough money to go to California. It's this fabled place. They want to get out of the res, get out of Oklahoma, because there's no hope there. But as the show goes on, it's really, really lovely. Like, it's a hangout film or hangout series with these 4 very, very realistic teens. I think the casting is so good. And it's really about, in my eye, kind of what Taika Waititi usually brings to the screen. I think you could argue that it's very Wes Anderson-y. I always think
Taika Waititi is, anyway.
Yeah. So it's his movies always feel like Wes Anderson with a layer of artifice stripped away. And for me,
Taika Waititi's like Wes Anderson, but with far more sadness underneath.
Right. Yes.
Sort of funnier, but sadder at the same time.
That's good.
Unless you're talking about the Royal Tenenbaums, which we watched again last night, which is just sad. But okay, yep.
Whereas this, because he's only exec producing, and obviously his fingerprints are on this project, but it's mainly Sterling Harjo's project. It's a Taika Waititi film with everything that he brings, the artifice stripped away. Like, it's very, very almost cinema verite in places. And I love it. It's a thing that's, it's broken all these records, right? All Indigenous writers and directors, almost entirely Indigenous North American cast and production team. So many of the writers are from a comedy troupe, the 1491s, which Sterling Harjo is a member of. And it's loose, but in a way that feels comfortable and lived in. The production design and the acting and the setting and the plot just feels so real. And yet there's always that tinge of optimism and hope. And even though the situation is hopeless, it never becomes wallowing. Like, you're not brought in as an audience as tourists to see, oh, look at how this side lives. You're very much with these kids, with their individual stories and how, they strive to be better people. So just a lovely series.
I already want to watch it. I just haven't got around to watching it. And Ted Lasso, I think you even undersold Ted Lasso. You gushed about it, but that was such an enjoyable first season. I can't wait to jump into that.
Awesome.
I'm going to jump in with my recommendation, and we'll come to you, Sarah, to wrap up this round. The recommendation that came to mind is not one from this year, and you've heard me recommend it to both of you many times. So I'm going to mention it, and then I'll actually share my proper one, which the one that I keep harping on about is The Leftovers. Because I've rewatched season 1 and 2 this lockdown. I watched the first 2 episodes. In fact, I watched the second episode of season 3. Again, I mentioned my boyfriend Josh a lot this episode, but he was sort of passively watching as well. It completely disturbed him. He had to leave my house. He's like, I have to leave. He was so disturbed by the existential qualities of the show. I didn't even think he was watching it, and he was like, But it is, and I was talking to another friend. I'm recording at a friend's podcast tonight. They've got a Survivor podcast called, what's it called? The Dragon. I should really shout out to them properly. I want to say Into the Dragon, but that's not the name of it.
No.
Slaying the Dragon. There we go. So they've got a Survivor podcast.
Not Chasing the Dragon.
No. Slaying the Dragon. I'm recording for their finale episode tonight. But Scott, who's kind of leads the charge there, he brought up The Leftovers the other night when we were watching it, and I was like, oh my gosh, you watched The Leftovers? Because nobody seems to have seen it. But yeah, wonderful show. First season is like a lot of the shows you watch is they're finding their feet, so you kind of have to just stick with it. But second season is one of the greatest.
I
TV
feel like
episodes
you've
ever.
recommended it so many times, and I have written it down every time, and I have never got to it. What's it on?
The second episode is the worst episode. So you watch this first episode, and then you're like, okay, cool. And then you watch the second one, you're like, well, I'm not sure about this. And then it kind of is all uphill from there. And by the time you get to episode 8 or 9 of season 1, every hour from that point on is like a work of art, because they've finally... Actually, Mimi Leder, she's a director. She comes in episode 5, and Damon Lindelof said that, you know, she was the missing production executive. Like, when she came in, she was the missing creative that just allowed us to find out.
Didn't she make The Peacemaker with Nicole Kidman and George Clooney?
Quite possibly.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
And what's Leftovers on?
On Neon.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's on Neon. So if you can kind of suffer your way through some dreary episodes, I do think by episode 3 you get a sense of what the show is about. Christopher Eccleston gets an entire episode to himself, and he's a powerhouse.
You had me at Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, and
Cool.
and Carrie Coon was kind of a nobody at the time, and she's sort of
You had me at Carrie Coon.
Oh, she's brilliant. So Carrie
Lord.
Coon is a bit part that ends up becoming, she's one of the central characters of the show, because they obviously realise that she's brilliant. Anyways, Leftovers is what you want to watch. It came out, 3 seasons came out years ago. But the one I'm going to recommend, we've all seen it because we did a whole episode on it, is The White Lotus.
Nice.
It was almost my text of the year, and I'm rewatching it again with Josh. There we go. How many times have I mentioned his name this episode? But he's
Does
cringing.
he get royalties?
Yeah. He's cringing through it. He can't stand awkward things, and we have to have big breaks between episodes. And I've had to tell him the entire plot of the show because he just can't handle not knowing. But it is a great time.
I'm going to watch that again.
It is a great time. My only issue is the slightly saccharine ending with one of the characters sailing off into the distance. But I feel the show has earned that with all of the horrible
After
people,
everything it's put us through.
all the other horrible characters. We need a bit of fantasy.
Everything the show's put him through specifically.
Yeah.
With his stuff.
Yeah. So I loved The White Lotus. I know William had issues with the music, but I love the music. Like, we just watched episode 2 with those horrific 2 young women, kind of pulling more and more drugs out of their bag after claiming they didn't bring any. And they're just horrible people. And the acting is brilliant. All of the actors in that show are so pitch perfect. What's his name? White, who wrote and directed it?
Mike
White. What an absolute powerhouse of a writer and a director. Just the confidence, the humour, the satire, the everything. What a joy. That's my recommendation. You've both seen it. I'm recommending it to anybody I can talk to. Sarah, I hand the raka to you.
Thank you. Well, I had originally thought that we were going to recommend one to each of you, but I realised this one here will do nicely for you both. I don't know if you did see it when it came out. I think around the middle of the year. How do we know anymore, right? Time passes in such a strange way. This film is an incredibly indie film called Lapis. All right, you're both looking at me like I do not know. So, there's a guy, a filmmaker called Noah Hutton. He wrote, this is his debut, he wrote, directed, scored and edited this film. My review began thus. I'd love to explain the conceit of Lapis, but for most of this low-budget sci-fi satire of the gig economy, it's hard to tell just what the gig actually is. But on the surface, it involves stringing fiber optic cables, hiking distance between a network of computer boxes in a forest. So basically, we have a protagonist, and he's this down-on-his-luck guy who needs to earn some money, and there's an organization, a shady organization called CBLR, like Cabler, and they're paying people who are down on their luck and desperate for money to literally cross forests, like go on hikes with a small backpack of provisions, and very, very much on a time schedule. They have to just wheel this cable through the forest, and then they plug it into a box somewhere, and they get a new cable, and off they go. And it's absurd in its conceit, but it is not only an absolutely fascinating and hilarious, I mean, inevitably, right, our protagonist, who is an actor who really struck me as a young James Gandolfini, which sort of begs the question, his name is Dean Imperial, it begs the question why he didn't play the young James Gandolfini in the Sopranos film, but never mind. Anyway, Lapis, I don't even know what to tell you other than you should totally watch it just because, A, what a fantastic filmmaking debut from this Noah Hutton fellow. So clever. And also, we don't really get very, very original, clever IP often anymore, you know?
I think it's back to that previous point, right? Of just this nostalgia mining.
Yes.
It's
and
depressing.
there's no nostalgia mining in this because it's set in a sort of a parallel, how do we talk about it in sci-fi terms? It's in a parallel reality.
Universe.
Well, not exactly. I mean, it's very much world. It's very much Earth. But it's kind of an old...
I mean, multiverse is the new phrase,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. No,
That's
this
getting bandied around a lot these days.
This is more like an alternate sci-fi reality.
Yeah.
Right.
And even the sci-fi isn't really that sci or fi. Well, no, maybe it's fi. Anyway, Lapis, Noah Hutton, totally watch it. Find it somewhere and see it.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Great title as well, Lapis. I
It's
love
cool as. So there you go.
that. Okay, we've come to our film of the year. Do we want to have a discussion about runner-ups first? Is that... Yeah, and then maybe if somebody shares your film of the year, just keep that a little bit secret. I reckon we can reveal repeated films if we want to. Does anyone want to jump in with some of their runner-ups? I've got one runner-up, but what else have...
Oh, I always have a 3, a 2, and then a 1.
Oh, nice.
And I have, I think, 5, 6. Just go through real quick.
I think White Lotus for me would be my number 3.
Okay.
That would be high up on my list of this year. Do you want to share a couple of yours, William?
Yeah, sure. So I had F9, The Fast Saga, director Justin Lin. Just had a blast seeing that with you, Jeremy, in cinemas. It has nutso action, it has big-hearted camaraderie, and it sends cars into space. I mean, what else could you want?
So that would be in your top 3 films of the year?
No,
There was
it's
another
just,
6.
Oh, this
I
is
think.
your
This is
short
like
list.
a short list.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay.
No numbers for my short list.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I had Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright. It's a mess of a movie. The third act is not great. But the music, the editing, the visuals are so striking. And the very end of the movie, it gives such a fitting send-off to Dame Diana Rigg that I think everything, all that mess in Act 3 is worth it just for that ending. Just
Nice. Is she in the film, or is it
She's one of the main characters of the film.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's her final project, I think.
Oh, that's special.
Yeah.
That's really special.
Green Knight, David Lowery. It's super slow. It's very pretty.
Is that Dev Patel?
It is Dev
Yeah.
Patel as Sir Gawain, as the
right.
Arthurian legend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's a postmodern look at Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I didn't enjoy the movie until, and you guys know I love this, it went into its 4th act.
Nice.
Like, yes!
You just
oh
love
my
if there is a
gosh,
4th
This
act.
is amazing!
Yeah.
And then VHS 94, that horror anthology movie, one of the short films called The Subject from Timo Tjahjanto, the Indonesian horror and action filmmaker, is completely bonkers. If you want to watch that movie, just check out that section. The others aren't very good. The Suicide Squad, James Gunn, lots and lots of fun. I cannot believe how much fun I was having with that movie. And it's, in my opinion, it's one of the rare superhero movies which actually has an agenda. And it's so rare. Like, it has something to say about the state of US politics and meddling in foreign affairs. And I thought that was strangely brave for such a blockbuster movie.
I didn't even know that movie had come out.
Really?
I missed that completely. So I looked at you strangely. I'm like, that movie's come out already?
It came out in July or June, I think.
I missed that. Missed that.
Super fun. Way better than the first one. And then my runner-up movie, and this is my favorite movie of the year, spoilers for later.
Yeah, TV series.
Is Pig.
Yeah.
Michael Sarnowski, in his directorial debut, like, what? This is amazing. Nicolas Cage is a truffle hunter, and his truffle pig gets stolen. It's like John Wick, if John Wick used emotional truths rather than bullets to defeat his
What
enemies.
a premise! A truffle pig gets stolen. I mean, I'm sold it.
And so he goes off into Portland,
Oh.
goes into the big smoke, and he finds his.
Of course, it's in Portland as well.
Of course, it's in Portland.
Yeah.
And
love
it's a deconstruction and a pastiche of fine dining and of what is real and what is surface level stuff. It's so good.
And I love pigs, and I love truffles.
And okay,
And
the
you love
pig-
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage masterclass performance in this movie.
And
And
he goes, "Fool, Nick Cage, no,
no,
spelling
no,
it."
the opposite.
It's
All right.
amazing.
Restrained.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
what is this alchemy?
Just the eyes. Sometimes just
Because
the
he has
eyes.
a big old beard.
I actually really like Nicolas Cage.
And the pig is so cute. So,
Aw.
yeah, Pig. What a movie.
Excellent. Sarah, what are your 3 and 2?
So, in not necessarily particular order, my 2 runners-up are... So one of them was the most affecting film that I saw this year. It's a documentary. Most of my top films are documentaries every year. And it's called Collective. And I probably told you both to see it. And Collective is a devastating documentary about a nightclub fire in Budapest in Romania. Do I mean Budapest? Budapest is Hungary. Wait. Bucharest! Sorry, there we go. In Bucharest, in Romania, there was a nightclub fire, and I think in total over 60, nearly 80 people perished. Many of them at the time, and then a whole lot more in hospital thereafter.
Right.
And amid accusations of sort of political corruption amongst and denial and whatnot in the healthcare, the state-run healthcare industry. One particular documentarian picked up a camera, started filming the revolution in the streets, and then started being able to speak to key journalists, politicians, healthcare workers to uncover this really dreadfully corrupt sort of situation. And everything I've just described, I realise, makes it sound really prosaic. Oh yeah, another documentary about corruption. And I think one of the most horrific and affecting parts of the film is that somebody within the nightclub had a camera and takes some footage, and it is absolutely horrifying watching things unfold. And then the film is absolutely gripping. And to me, it's yet another example of how documentary, that is to say truth, can be so much more affecting than fiction so often. And so Collective, which is the name of the nightclub in Bucharest, is the film. So that's most definitely one of my runners-up of the year. Absolutely, highly recommended.
Nice. I've been riveted 3 times in this podcast by Shearer. That kind of works.
Yeah.
Sarah Shearing, I was going to say, but we can call you Shearer.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, my other runner-up is a wonderful New Zealand film. It was a debut, and it's sort of a thriller horror. Well, more a thriller than a horror, which is unusual for me in terms of genre. And it is the film Coming Home in the Dark. Did either of you see it?
No.
Holy mackerel,
Oh.
you have to. Brilliant New Zealand film. Written and directed. Okay, so actually it derives from an Owen Marshall short story. But then it takes sort of the essence of that short story and it builds it into not just a feature-length film, but it also extrapolates from it various aspects of backstory for the various characters. The short synopsis, if you will: a family of 4 go on a road trip in New Zealand, and it's really dull New Zealand landscape as well. This is not this is no Hobbit about any of this. They go on this road trip and they encounter 2 taciturn, mysterious drifters, criminals. Horrific things ensue, and their road trip is completely overturned, and it's masterful. The performances, not just from the principal family, but actually the 2 criminals. The performances are absolutely extraordinary. One of the criminals is played by Scribe's brother, Matias Luafutu, who is an actor, and the other is played by Daniel Gillies, and these guys are absolutely sublime in. Do you know what I mean? They're the sort of criminals who aren't shouting at you and being overtly threatening in perhaps a Nick Cage sort of way. It's a very kind of sly kind of, everybody better put your seatbelt on. We want to keep everybody safe kind of like insidiousness.
I love that.
Coming Home in the Dark from beginning to end is absolutely gripping. It is superbly written, acted, blah, blah, blah. And it also has a very, very strong moral thread throughout, which is really affecting. So, flippin' heck. Did I say James Ashcroft? That's the name of the writer-director.
Oh, no. I mean, I love New Zealand film, and I love a good New Zealand horror thriller, and even more so a road trip where we get to experience parts of the country.
Sort of.
I can't... okay.
So Coming
can't
Home,
wait to see it.
Coming Home in the Dark, sublime. You should totally see it.
Excellent.
Sweet.
My runner-up film of the year is one I actually forgot it even came out this year, which is maybe tells you a little bit about how I felt about movies this year, but I saw it and I thought, of course it has to be on my list, which is In the Heights.
Hey.
Had such a good time watching, and we did an episode on it, so you can go back, listeners, and hear about what we each thought in regards to that movie. But I love that film. I love that musical. I thought that was the best adaptation I could expect from that story. I thought they made some really strong choices to adapt the show. They removed songs that, whilst they're lovely songs, didn't need to be there. And I had a great time. It was colourful. I think it really is interesting that it comes out the same year as West Side Story, and I'm interested to see how that goes. There was some criticism of the film around casting, and there was some criticism, well, not criticism of the film, but didn't supposedly do as well at the box office. But from the looks of things with West Side Story, that's not doing very well. No, it's made a pittance at the opening weekend.
10 mil, I think.
Oh,
low even for COVID standards.
Well, I heard that The Last Duel has only made 10 million from a budget of 100 and something million.
Wow!
And that's a great film.
I saw a TikTok the other day, and because Ridley Scott's gone on record as blaming millennials for the thing, and this woman's like, many millennials are pushing 40, Ridley Scott. We're not these kids sitting around, I'm a millennial and I'm 35. Like, millennials are not the reason your film didn't do well. You just didn't market it very well. I think it's the same with West Side Story. It seems to be no marketing around the place. Yeah. And I'd say in The Heights as well. Like, they did not seem to know what to do with these films that aren't superhero franchises. Anyways, In the Heights, it's my runner-up of the year. It potentially will be the film that I watch the most in the future because, musicals have such a rewatchability
they really do.
element. So we'll see. But I do think my film of the year will also be one I rewatch many, many times. So we shall see. Mm-hmm. Who would like to start with their film or maybe television series of the year? Sarah, do you want to go first?
I'll go first because mine's a real bum out.
Oh.
So I would say, hands down, that the best film of this year, which I saw very early in the year, as is the way, William, as you say, isn't it, that the Oscar bait films come out sort of over Christmas and at the very beginning, and then you forget about them, and then you think, what a crap year this has been, and then you go, oh yeah. Anyway, it was Anthony Hopkins playing the father.
Wow.
Against Olivia Colman. Now, the Florian Zeller is a playwright, and he adapted his own play, The Father, to this film version. And because it's a film and not a play, he was able to do an extraordinary thing. The Father is about an old man called Anthony, played by Anthony Hopkins, who indeed he wrote it for. He was hoping that Anthony would play the part, who is declining mentally in a rest home with dementia. Or is he in a rest home? It's hard to know, because in the film we get to see things through Anthony's eyes. So a lot of it he's actually in his daughter Anne's house, and Anne is played by Olivia Colman. But then all of a sudden Anne isn't played by Olivia Colman, she's played by another actress. And
that's cool.
And then sometimes there's a husband in the room, and then sometimes he's not a husband, he might be somebody else. And so we are really getting a sense of the father's confusion, losing his grip on whatever he perceives the reality to be. And of course we also do see him from the outside. This is not a bird's eye, what's it called? This is not a point of view camera piece or anything kind of gross like that. We'll also see him experiencing confusion and accusing people of stealing his watch, and kind of, and being cantankerous or being nice or suddenly being this or that. And it was absolutely devastating. And Anthony Hopkins did win the Best Actor Oscar back in, when was that? February, March. And absolutely worthily. And I think Florian Zeller may have won Best Adapted Screenplay. I can't quite remember. Olivia Colman is exceptional. So really it's about the performances. And I think, maybe it goes without saying, I had lost my dad 2 months prior.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, my father didn't decline in that same way, but there was still enough of an evocation of an older guy ailing, losing things, his life or his perceptions and all that sort of thing. And I just found it absolutely devastating. And thereafter, I couldn't watch the trailer anymore because I would immediately get flashbacks, But anyway, amazing film. And so that is also such a relief to know that there is still amazing IP out there being made into incredibly well-acted, well-conceived films. So The Father.
I love that. I'm definitely going to give it a shot. There's been a lot of films already. Can we try and guess William's television series of the year? Is it
of this year?
Of course it's of this
year. Is it Cowboy Bebop?
How did you know?
Is it New Zealand Celebrity Treasure Island?
Well, it's both of those things, actually.
Is it Succession? Do you watch Succession?
It's not Succession, though. I will watch Succession someday,
as
I posted on your Insta page.
All right.
It is a TV... can we call Netflix shows TV shows?
Yes.
I don't know. It's
is
a
it
Netflix
limited
show.
Series?
Would it be limited? I know there's a season 2 coming. So for the longest time, you guys, Reservation Dogs was my top pick. I saw it in August. It's like, this is incredible. Top pick. I saw Pig. It was like, Reservation Dogs is better. Top pick. And it was in November. It was actually about 3 or 4 weeks ago. That something popped up on my YouTube feed, and I had a watch. I'm like, oh, this looks pretty good. Ladies and gents, it is Arcane. It is Arcane.
I clicked right when you said it. I've heard so many people rave about Arcane.
This show it's next level stuff. So I'm going to break down my thoughts into 3 small sections. So what is Arcane?
Yeah.
And I wrote down a plot summary. So amidst the escalating unrest between the gleaming utopian city of Piltover and the squalid, repressed undercity of Zorn, street-smart sisters Vi and Powder find themselves on the opposing sides of a war. Meanwhile, 2 young scientists make breakthrough discovery with Hextech, harnessing magic through technology. As these stories start to intertwine, the world itself shifts ever onwards towards an uncertain future. Ooh. Okay, so I know what it sounds like. It sounds a little YA, like, I don't know, Mortal Engines or whatnot. And how I would put this is, it is probably the best YA fiction ever made, and I would include stuff like Harry Potter in this as well. Unfortunately, it is based on a video game.
Right.
But it's a video game I've never touched. It's League of Legends. I know it's super popular around the world. I've never played it. I don't know who the characters are. I just went into the show because the art style was amazing. And it's such a good adaptation.
Is it animated?
It's animated, yes.
Completely animated?
Completely animated.
Okay.
And I'll talk about the animation in just a bit. So, break it down into why I love this show so much. And it's something I've returned to. I've watched it twice now, the entire season.
How many episodes?
9 episodes. So Netflix was smart in releasing it in 3 episode arcs. So it's like arc 1, then there's a time skip, then arc 2 and arc 3 to, tie it all together. So it's a video game adaptation that doesn't require you to know anything about the source material. And the world building is done from the ground up. Basically, everything that you see on screen informs you about what kind of world this is and what the characters are, right? It is very, very character-centered, so it's the characters that always drive the plot. The plot it's myriad. I know a lot of people liken it to Game of Thrones because there's so many different threads. I think I see those comparisons, but I think this show, because of its nature, it's more expensive, the episodes have to be shorter, it's just much more to the point than even the best episodes of Game of Thrones. They really aren't people speechifying or talking about their motives. You can see it in the characters' faces and how they move and how they animate. Like, this is what this specific character is about.
What country is it from?
It is from France.
And is it in French?
No, it's in American.
Okay.
So it's an American gaming company. It's animated by Studio Fortiche, which is based in Paris and other French towns.
Yes. In fact, I believe that they're the animators for Wes Anderson's French Dispatch.
Fortiche made French Dispatch?
I
That's
believe
amazing.
so. I believe so. Are they in Avignon or something?
I need to double check.
Okay, right.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
So basically, it's all about all of this stuff, right? Characters, like Game of Thrones, it's about characters bouncing off each other and different character pairings. The themes are so rich, and it's like, ostensibly, this is YA fiction, but you've never seen YA fiction like this. Like, it's very, very much about class disparity on all sides of that fence. Like, no one is ever right or wrong. There's shades of grey in our brightest heroes and our darkest villains. Like, you sympathize for the villains in such a way that you very rarely see in modern cinema. And it pushes for the idea that you have this world it's basically a fantasy, steampunk, industrial revolution. But what are the costs of that, right? What happens when you have people who are saying it's much better to be safe and to stay with the status quo versus people who are pushing for action, pushing for technology and science and revolution? On one hand, yes, it's safer to not do that. On the other hand, it shows you the result of this class disparity that's happened because of this. So yeah, just super good stuff. The characters are so engrossing. The animation. Okay, let's jump to part 2, which is animation. So Studio Fortiche, I think, and I don't put this lightly, I think this is a paradigm shift in animation. For TV animation, how much money did they put into this thing? So some things that spring to mind that have really shifted the needle of animation, stuff like Little Mermaid, using computer animation with hand-drawn stuff. Toy Story. Paperman, did you guys see that short?
Yes, I used to teach it.
Oh, amazing.
Did they do that?
No. This is all Disney. Into the Spider-Verse is another one. And I feel like the style of Arcane is taking the Into the Spider-Verse 2D plus 3D and really taking that to a whole new level. It's very, very textured. Oftentimes it looks like an oil painting, like a moving oil painting with brush strokes, but also with 2D effects animation of fire, smoke, and water, hand-drawn layered on top. On top of that, it then uses modern technologies to replicate live-action camera moves. So most of it is shot like a live-action movie.
Right.
It's not a free-floating camera that can do crazy things. It's very, very grounded, and that aspect of it just grounds all the action, grounds all the dialogue. It feels like the world's most beautiful prestige show, even though it is animated.
I am sold.
Yeah, this is great. I've got a lot of things set on my list. What's the third section?
The third section is just it's very, very nuanced. The animation of the eyes, there's not much dialogue at all. It's basically show, don't tell.
Ooh,
you see what is happening with how the characters flash a look at each other. You can see, like enemies kind of eyeing each other up for killing, or you can see flirtations, or you can see all these little things. A character always rolls her shoulder before getting into a fist fight. It's like, who thought of this?
Nice.
And the detail that is in this stuff. And related to that is just, I guess, the diversity of the show is also insane. Like, it is a video game adaptation, and the majority of the main cast are women. And it's all women, different walks of life, different races, different body builds. It's like nothing else is doing what Arcane is doing. And the only unfortunate thing is it's based on a video game, and that's why people are being turned off.
Yeah.
You said at the start of the spiel, William, like, unfortunately it's based on a video game. I think that's a reflection of how disappointing video game adaptations have been, and how it's so many of... I can't even think of any other video game adaptations. I'm sure there's one where I've been impressed or satisfied. I mean, I think right back to that release of Final Fantasy, that film back in was it the late 90s that it came out? I remember all my friends and I...
I went to
Did
see
you?
it.
I was like...
But only because I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. I'm pretty sure that was the one where the hair moved.
Yeah,
but that's, it was
the skin texture was really nice in that movie.
That was like a whoa kind of thing.
They've generally been, Resident Evil was fine, but it was still pretty average. And
Super Mario Brothers with
I never
Bob
saw
Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
Yeah, that's one of the worst versions of that. Arcane, awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Well, my film of the year is one that I saw recently, and I went and saw it twice, and that's Dune Part 1.
Wow,
I was going to ask if it was Part 1.
I do, like, we talked in our chat about the issues of the ending, how it did kind of just end. And I fully agree with you, William, that is an interesting choice, let's say. But I don't, like I said in the chat, I don't have a solution for how they could have done it better. I went and saw that movie kind of a little bit like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this. I always enjoyed Denis Villeneuve, but I do find he's sometimes it can feel a bit cold. And I'm not saying this film didn't feel like that, but my mouth was kind of hanging open through the entire film. And I saw it at the VMAX. We talked in our chat about the best way to see it. I prefer the VMAX because I find the sound at the IMAX just too loud. Like, it hurts my ears. I feel like it's not as strong of a system, and so they try and compensate by turning it up.
Yeah.
The screen is fantastic.
I find the seats hard at the IMAX. They hurt my knees. So there you go.
That's that as well. Whereas the VMAX, the new cinema in Auckland at the Westgate in Newmarket, the seats, not only do your feet come up, but the whole back of the chair, sort of moves back.
We call that a recliner in the business.
Well, it's not. It's more than a reclining. The whole base of the chair kind of rotates down.
That's the recliner seat.
Well, there you go. Okay, recliner chair.
Not to be confused with the sofa beds or something. But
Bean bags.
No.
The sofa beds are strange.
Oh, why would you lie on a bed up the front?
There?
I don't want to know.
Anyways, so and just that Dolby Atmos experience is incredible. I mean, often the best part of Dolby Atmos is the promo clip at the start.
Yeah.
But I feel this
around
film,
you.
this movie was the sound was immaculate. The soundscape I really loved. It had all the best Hans Zimmerisms, both from his more recent Dark Knight Whams to his beautiful melodies of like Gladiator. I mean, I'm thinking back to your The Sound of Movies podcast series that you did.
But also a little bit of Evangelisy sort of stuff. Did I feel some of that?
Well, I mean, I feel that connection to Blade Runner 2049 anyway, which he did as well. But yeah, it was just really, really impressive. I thought the visuals and just the celebration of visuals and just the allowing of big shots. Like I'm thinking of the nuns, what do they call them? They've got the Bene Gesserit, whatever they're called, arriving in the rain. Like it's like setting that in the rain was so cool. And I found talking about fourth acts, the fact that the big action sequence takes place smack bang in the middle of that movie, and it just arrives and you're in.
What an action sequence it is. It reminded me a lot of Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, nice.
Like it just keeps going and going and amping up in the momentum.
And it didn't focus on the things we usually focus on. It didn't focus on the hand-to-hand combat. It didn't focus on the guns. Like they were all there, but it was very Blade Runner-y with the explosions occurring and the kind of shields and penetrating the shields and then the internal explosion and then And then the sequence with Jason Momoa and him flying through, and I just thought the character work was fantastic. I thought the acting was immaculate. And Timothée Chalamet, who I've always enjoyed, but never been like, I love Timothée Chalamet, that is the most obnoxious character. You know, Paul is so obnoxious. He's a whiny little kid, and yet he managed to make him... I don't know if likable is the right word, but he made him. You felt connected with him, and the mother as well. She's quite a very cold,
Jessica,
harsh character.
To me, can I just say it speaks of the time when the source material was written.
Jessica
that they're called Jessica and Paul in the future, in like not even like the year 3000 and something, the year 10,900 and something, and they're still calling people Jessica and Paul. But those names must have come round again.
Yeah, I mean they're partnered up with all of the names of the houses and things. I just thought that they made those characters likable. I thought Jason Momoa was being the best parts of Jason Momoa without the annoying parts of Jason Momoa. Oscar Isaac is always a joy.
Josh Brolin
Thanos,
was all right.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
I thought
everybody... And that was just a bit part, but he was so good in it.
Stellan Skarsgård was great
always
as
great.
the Baddie. Somebody likened him to likened him to Marlon Brando.
Absolutely.
Apocalypse that shot of him coming out
when he literally like was holding his head and wiping sweat off. There was also I thought. There was the character, Josh Brolin's character we don't know the fate of, so I'm assuming, I don't know the novel, so I'm assuming he's coming back.
Don't say anything in case people haven't yet watched part one.
Sorry, yes. Okay, true, I was going to reveal a whole lot of deaths there, Kurt.
No!
But I also loved the character who was the advisor, and his eyes kind of go back into his head. He was a cool character.
No, he is an interesting character actor who I've seen in everything and couldn't tell you any of it, and don't know his name, but he has such a face, doesn't he, that he's been hanging out for a Dune adaptation in order to get a solid role, because he's too strange for normal reality.
Yeah, his character actor.
Yeah.
And I just haven't seen a movie in a long time, probably since Fury Road, and before that Gravity, which is like, this really can only be seen at the cinema.
Yes.
I was thinking to you, William, I was like, if William watches this on a plane, I might actually say
oh my gosh.
Like, if you came in, I watched it on a plane. I'm like, no, William!
We might actually replace you in year 5 or 6 or whatever we're coming up to. We'd be like, yeah, William's gone.
Oh, that's good stuff. So there you go. I can't wait for Dune Part 2. I hope it happens. You know, there was the big... Denis Villeneuve kind of came out and said, I can't believe they're releasing it digitally. And then Warner Brothers have come back and said, we promise we'll make part 2. And I hope that's the case. If they don't make part 2, it'll be devastating, because what a joy of a film that deserves the second part. Awesome. Before we wrap up, team, maybe we just go around and share some of the films that we are looking forward to seeing in the next season. I mentioned some at the start, but what are some movies that we're looking ahead to over the next month?
I'm desperate for House of Gucci.
Me too.
And even, I don't care if the reviews are mixed, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to have a whale of a time. I think that it is going to be more like Ridley Scott's film All the Money in the World, the one about... Do you remember there was that film a couple of years back and Kevin Spacey played Getty, and then they got rid of him and put old Plummer in. I think it's probably going to have that sort of look and feel to it.
I'm expecting Hannibal, which is Hannibal is messy. Hannibal's a messy film with some great moments and performances.
And Gaga will own it for sure.
And tonally, Hannibal was all over the show.
Sure.
Whereas I feel like that's what I'm expecting from House of Gucci, because from the reviews, it's bloated, long. Pacing is off, but performances like Gaga. I'm going to love that. I mean, it's Ridley Scott, one of my favourite directors, and I kind of like Lady Gaga. Have we made that clear?
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever mentioned that, but bit of a fan. And the other one, I am really looking forward to The Matrix. My loins are much more girded for that film, because just because the trailer is all, again, nostalgia, really.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
With a little bit of Jonathan Groff playing a psychiatrist or something.
I think he's the new agent stuff, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right.
He's the villain.
You can tell he's a villain from the trailer, can't you? Just because he's such a good actor that you can tell he's being disingenuous. That's my view anyway. Anyway, really looking forward to The Matrix.
Can I say on The Matrix, best trailer of the year in my opinion.
Yeah.
That use of the boom, 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 boom,
boom,
boom. Like the second trailer is not as good because that song, one pill. What a great use of the song.
Yeah, and that film could wind up being really disappointing, but it's an event movie, isn't it?
The first reviews have come out and said it's awe-inspiring and very meta.
Very, very good.
Yeah. How about you, William?
All right, French Dispatch. I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm really, really looking forward to it. And the other one, which really surprises me, because I guess every single trailer has been amazing, is The Batman, the new Matt Reeves movie. I love the stuff for Planet of the Apes, the reboot. Those movies are amazing. But everything they're showing of this new R-Pats as, Bruce Wayne, it looks both visually and just thematically stunning. So really, really looking forward to that.
Excellent. I mean, I think I've said all of mine, which is, Power of Dog, which I need to see. It's on Netflix. Encanto, which I'm seeing tomorrow. Spider-Man, which is tomorrow. Matrix Resurrections. Probably go with the family to see that, which is exciting. Last Night in Soho, I need to see. French Dispatch, House of Gucci, West Side Story. But I think the other one that is, and again, I mentioned this at the start, is I just go back and watch the trailer sometimes, is The Tragedy of Macbeth.
Oh, yes.
I just, the referencing to, Orson Welles' black and white films, particularly Othello, the Ingmar Bergman, what's the other big one?
Polanski?
Polanski one?
The Akira Kurosawa.
Akira Kurosawa, various Shakespeare films. I'm very excited for that movie, and it's interesting, actually, connections between brothers that have made films and siblings that have made films. The Wachowski siblings and
the Coen brothers.
The Coen brothers, or the Wachowski sisters, the Coen brothers, and the kind of separating to go their own ways, not for any negative reasons, but just for their own personal journeys.
Yep.
And interesting to see how these one halves move forward. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. And I just want to say thank you to those listeners that have stuck with us over the last year, or over the last few years, as we've all navigated this online space. We're coming up to, I guess, our 70th episode very shortly, which is 70 months of us meeting together. And I guess I want to shout out to Max as well, who started with us. If you don't know, we had a fourth podcaster for a period of time, and he's moved overseas, and so sort of handed over the reins to us, didn't he? And I just want to say a massive thank you to William and Sarah for meeting. I don't know why I'm feeling nostalgic. Maybe because it's the first time we've met in a long time, and it's the end of the year.
I have to do a shout out to you, Jeremy, because I think William and I are into this, but my goodness, you keep us regular. You keep us doing this every single month without fail, and it's a delight to have been part of something that does have that regularity, that longevity, and I think that the passion that we bring to every single one of these episodes. So this was your brainchild, so what an honour to be part of it.
Well, it was born fully out of our relationships that we had, that we established, and we still haven't run out of things to say about movies, had we? And we've definitely developed a common language about what we do and don't like, but I appreciate each of our perspectives and how we can sort of disagree and push back and pass the ball around and still, enjoy some cheese and strawberries together. If you enjoyed our podcast, then please share it with your film-loving friends. You can listen to Cinema in Context in a range of places, including SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode, or give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, which will kick us off into 2022. Actually, we're going to have a plethora of films to choose from, right? We
Yes,
just
we
mentioned
are.
many, and there's many more coming in January
Yep.
we haven't mentioned. And we've sort of played around with ideas, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, we shall see. Until then, no
ora
ora mai!